Hello everyone, thank you very much for attending our special noodle class. My name is Akira, this is Amigumi, and so we are talking about Kotteri Ramen soup. Like, for those of you who don't know, like what Kotteri is, like that's a Japanese word, which means like rich in taste, and like it can something actually positive, like it can something like something negative, like it could be like something oily, greasy, like heavy, but we're talking about something positive, like the Kotteri ramen soup, and then so we're gonna explain how to make Kotteri ramen soup from scratch. How we can do that, like and then Megumi is gonna make noodles that go well with Kotteri ramen soup, right? And then we're gonna move to kitchen where like our instructor is gonna both show us like how to put together Kotteri ramen soup and a dish that Kotteri ramen soup is used for. And so let's dive into making great Kotteri ramen soup. Okay, so so today we are talking about these things, right? Like, so what are the elements of great thick ramen soup? Like, so that's Kotteri, thick ramen soup, right? Um, then three important things in making Kotteri ramen soup, and well, what are the typical mistakes making like when like producing thick ramen soup, and well, that's where Megumi comes in. Like so you choose to make the well noodles, fresh noodles from scratch that go well with thick ramen soup. And in the kitchen, our instructors is going to show us the how well we can put together a bowl with thick ramen soup noodles. All right, so and then if you have any questions, answers, always any questions, please feel free to ask in the during class anytime you want. Like just send them in the comments. Um, I'd be like more than happy to answer them. So let's get started. So Kotteri ramen soup is actually what makes ramen very unique and it's like it's a very dense stock, right? It's very dense, rich in flavor and taste. And that's not like, well, there's nothing like really similar to, well, like Kotteri ramen soup. And then, so that's what made, like Kotteri ramen is what made ramen. It's very popular and very unique across the world. So what are the elements, right? So like it's rich in flavor and usually, when we are making like thick stock, right? It comes with like some animal odor, like it's not like an unpleasant smell, but it doesn't have any. It shouldn't have like that's because that's good, right? Good one, right? So, and then the next one is like so low salinity level. So like we don't want to have like a very salty stock, right? And the viscosity, right? Viscosity, it really depends on what kind of or Kotteri ramen soup you're talking about, but it may be one of the elements. So rich in flavor, animal odor, like how can we achieve that? So that's one of it is like removable, completely removable scums, which we will talk about more details later. And we have to manage our cooking process well, and then we're gonna talk more about this later. And the good ingredients, we're gonna talk about this later, but like you have to have of course like good ingredients to make rich well ramen stock, right? And so low salinity level for us to be able like achieve this low salinity level like soup, but like rich in flavor and everything. But so what we have to have is like high density based stock. We has to have well, the stock that's high in density and rich in flavor, and it has to like have like this natural taste of ingredients in the base stock and viscosity. So depending on like what kind of noodles that you're coupling, your the Kotteri, the thick ramen soup, right? It really depends, but like viscosity may play a role, like when it comes to like coupling with the noodles, and then so viscosity can be added like naturally or like naturally from the ingredients, or like you can add it, like add some other ingredients to like, achieve like certain level of like viscosity. And the collagen is the key. And so what that like I'm gonna talk about like more about it later. So three important things, right? Like when you're making great like ramen soup, is three things. So what are they? So what are the ingredients, equipment, and methods? Let me talk about them in each of them in details. So ingredients, right? So like quality, quality when it comes to like quality of ingredients that we use for liquid ramen stock is basically freshness, and yeah, and so like depending like where you are, right, where you're like making your ramen soup, like you may not be able like procure like some for example like pork bones, fresh pork bones, like you have to have like you would have probably have to use like frozen ones, but they make sure that they are properly processed. Well, in Japan, like there are many ramen shops, or like some companies like making ramen soup in mass quantity, right? So like these vendors, butchers and all these vendors, suppliers know how to properly process all these ingredients for um, for the manufacturer to be able like efficiently make them into new stocks. But if like if you're making like I don't know ramen stock like in somewhere in Europe or somewhere like, then you may not be able like your vendors may not know how how they should how they're supposed to like process them, right? um, the consistency, of course, you want to be able to like get the supplies of quality ingredients from every day. So these are some types of like animal type stock ingredients that we use, and it's like pork backbone and pork legs, right, and the whole chicken, chicken carcass, and something like like pork head and like trotters and chicken feet. Um, yeah, so yeah, it's like when back in when we were doing conducting like real school in Singapore, right? Then like in Singapore, like there's not much demand like on ingredients for ramen stock, right? So yeah, so we got like all these like pork backbones with like a lot of meat on them, and a meat is great like for extraction of like a lot of like umami, right? But like when you're trying to like make stock like that's emulsified, that'll be like difficult to do like with that bones with like lots of meats on them. So it would take time. It will take time. So um, yeah, but like because there's no demand on like these ingredients, right? In certain countries, so they are not properly processed, right? So you may be able like ask them to process them like certain ways, right? So yeah, that's something that you may want to work with your local suppliers. And equipment, right? Equipment, yeah, so for thick ramen stock, it was like the power and ease of use, of course, and then some equipment that help you optimize your cooking. And so, for example, like optimize cooking. So, for example, like soft water, right? And we've been talking about soft water, the importance of soft water in while cooking the stock. And I'm going to talk about it more about it later. But like we want to have right like faucet like that runs soft water. And then this is the actually picture of our ramen school, like when they are making base stocks. And yeah, so yeah, we want to have like we want to keep the this ratio like optimal like water to ingredient ratio, because that's the amount of water you need for a certain amount of quantity of ingredients you're cooking in a pot to most efficiently extract the umami out of the ingredients, right? So um, to maintain that water ratio, we have the faucet right above the pot to kind of constantly add water, because over time that water like evaporates, right? So we want to keep it by adding water a little by little. So that's a kind of like well equipment, like the tools that you want to have for your well yeah thick ramen stock, and then the stock ranges. I want to talk about more about this later, but like it should be high powered, and depending on well how much of the thick stock you're making, and then what kind of like what the density of the stock you're making. So it has to be high powered. And then in this picture, we use the induction heating system. And of course, like you can use like in gas powered or like electric powered ranges as well. And yeah, so this is more like a method, but like because like the ingredients are like kind of touching the bottom of the pot, right? And then that's heated. And so, well, the chances are like because you have to well keep cooking them at a high heat, and if the ingredients touching at the bottom, then they may have like well high chance of like getting burnt, right? That would ruin your stock. So you have to like constantly stir the ingredients from the bottom to kind of prevent them from getting burnt. And after you done with that stock, right? That means well the stock has reached the final density. Then you'd have to like strain them out, and then you have to like rapidly cool the base stocks. For the reason that if you just well um, you know just leave them out, right? Just with that still hot, right? Then like the stock is going to still cook, right? And some bacteria and stuff like it's just going to grow, right? So that's the method, like that's the process like we have to go through. Okay, and so the optimal water and ingredient cooking ratio that we just talked about. So that's 2 to 1, water being 1 to ingredient being 1, and again like these guys like measuring the water level, right? Water line. That's the water surface, like distance between like water surface and the well rim, the lid of the pot. So by maintaining the water level, we can maintain the optimal water ratio. And so after we're done, right, it's like we gonna strain the stock, and yeah. So talking about like thick stock, right, and then um, it's notoriously time-consuming and labor-intensive this process. And basically, you have to like separate, right, like tonkotsu stock, like pure tonkotsu stock, and remaining like ingredients, right? And it's very tough to strain thick stock by hand because like as you can see like in this picture, right, like you have to like have that more strainer, and they just kind of strain it like kind of like well constantly keep like stirring it, right, with that like what I go like in the spatula, right, and then trying to push the ingredients right out the holes, right? Like all these holes in the mesh, and but like all these like residual like the meat and like bones are like kind of stuck and clogging the holes, so that like just this tiny bit of like drop driplets of the stock is like just coming out of the holes like a little by little. So it would take like well in some cases like it just I don't know like 60 minutes like and 2 hours. So it's very tough, like in time consuming, and you have like constant storing, so like it's labor intensive as well. Um, so and then like after that, right? Then we found that like this is the residual of the ingredients, that's after that. Well, we hand strained, and then but look at it, it's like if you squeeze them in by hand, right? Like there's still like some well pure stock like that's coming out of the ingredients. So well, but we don't realize that there's some stock in there, right? So we just throw them away. So that's a waste of stock. And yeah, so we just probably just losing, right? Losing a lot of like money, time, labor on soup straining. So that's why I invented this machine, soup straining machine, and this is yeah, just like well strain the stock like just automatically, right? With this or centrifuge system, and then it has like 20% better yield, like compared to hand straining. For example, like so, this machine, well, gets the 96 liters, for example. But the hand straining, like it just comes down to like 8 liters. So like you're losing 16 liters of stock, pure like very good stock just by hand straining, right? That's equivalent of like 50 servings of stock just wasted in this process. And then straining time like cut by half, right? And this machine you can do it like in 30 minutes, and hand straining by 60 minutes, right? So 30 minutes saved just by straining by machine. So yeah, it's like think about like well, so you have to do it every day, right? How much money you're losing, how much time you're losing on this hand training job every day. And so and on top of that, right? This is the on the right hand side, like that's hand training. What's remained inside the stock that's strained, right? So there's still this amount of like residual like the ingredients that's still left out. That's well actually that's remained right in that stock. So when you but like on the left hand side like that's the machine strained. So it's just the amount of like residuals that's like contained in that stock because as you can see the is yeah, in a big difference, right? So you can tell, like, like you have to taste that, like, residual, like, all these, uh, this is really like tiny pieces of that bones and like, tiny pieces like meat fibers and stuff like in the mouth. So that sort of undermines the taste of the broth as well. And talking about like temperature, temperature matters. Like so, this is like food safety 101, but like like there's a something called the danger zone on the temperature. 5 degrees Celsius, like 16 degrees Celsius, 41 Fahrenheit, 135 Fahrenheit. That's a danger zone. So like whenever like food is just like at this temperature, then there's a high risk of like getting them spoiled. So we have to manage the temperature, right? When it comes to like or making a base stock. So so over 60 degrees Celsius, like that umami gets starts getting out, right? But it doesn't like scam udon baby like come out like until like when it reaches like 95 degrees, like 95 degrees and 90 over 95 degrees. That's the optimal temperature. That scam like start coming out. So it's like we have to raise the temperature above 95 degrees, and the time like it takes to completely skim the scum would be like 30 minutes, an hour, depending on like the ingredients you're working on. So you have to take time, and then after that, right, you have to keep cooking it above like 95 degrees because that's a range of temperature like 95, 98 degrees Celsius. That's a range temperature, like kind of optimal range when it's like umami extraction is most efficient, right? And so after it reaches that final density, like we're gonna cool it while storing it, of course, strain it and then start cooling it down. The rapid cooling, and then when it reaches like under 10 degrees Celsius, then you can finally store them away in the refrigerator. So the methods are also important when making great thick ramen soup, right? So we developed like over the past 20 years, we've been conducting our ramen school, and then like we must have made like tons and tons of like these thick ramen stocks in our school because like every class we make um, thick ramen stock like from scratch, right? So we did like a lot of experimentations, research, working with like hundreds of like ramen professionals. So our methods are based on like scientific knowledge, right? And the digital cooking, we talked about, right? And then it's fail proof. So um, yeah, so the soft water, right? We talked about already, and that's you should use like almost like you must use, right, soft water. If you're like if your tap water in your local region is especially hard or semi-hard, then we really recommend that you use salt water when for cooking of thick stock, because that would dramatically will change the well amount of time like it takes to cook it, and then of course well like that dramatically change the taste as well, because like hard water like contains all these like, minerals like magnesium, like calcium. These occupy the like all the areas, like all the rooms of the in the water, right? So umami, all these like essence of the from the ingredients, it takes time. It takes them time to like release to the water. So in some cases, right, it's a difference between like 10 hours and 5 hours. So seriously, so it's like if to reach, for example, like in this six, then you can imagine like how much more gas you have to use, how much more labor you have to spend on well getting the same result or like or worse, right? So yeah, so salt water is very very important. And so cooking temperature, right, for base stock, right? Like we kind of talked about already, but like the umami so starts extracting like essences, like getting extracted like from 60 degrees Celsius and above. And but the scum, right, which is the cause of the the unpleasant smell, wouldn't come out until maybe like 90 degrees Celsius or so. So, well, we have to, raise the temperature to the optimal temperature when the scrums come out, and then the flavor, starts coming out like from 95 degrees and up, and umami extraction is like more sufficient, like in the range between like 96 degrees Celsius and 98 degrees Celsius, and we measure it, right? We measure the density. We have to measure the density to see, how well. So we use this tool called like refractometer, and so we measure it every hour, and then see like how this is like coming up. And so for thick stock, right, Kotteri ramen stock, we do the two-stage production. So yeah, this is like first target, like this target, right? We have to reach, right, and then and then up to the point like we have to maintain that water level. That's the most efficient like extraction water to ingredient ratio. So we have to keep that. We have to keep that, and then after we reach the like target density, like the first one, let's say that it's 4, right? And then we can start reducing it, like boiling it down, right? And then until we reach it at 8 degrees, like final density, and then it's done, right? And then we start straining it, and then we start like rapid cooling them. So and so another thing we have to understand is that like that base stock, especially when it comes like the thicker the stock, like the larger stock pots we need for the amount of stock we want to make, right? So let's say that like we start from like 120 kilograms of ingredients. So ingredients like let's say like it's pork bones, right? Pork bones, that's 40 kilograms and 80 kilograms water. And after we go through this process, right? And then so yield becomes like the like final amount of stock we get like it's 72 kilograms. So that's like 60%, right? And then so that's equivalent of like 180 to 240 servings of these stocks. Um, Usually like 300 to 400 grams per serving. So and again, like, we need to choose stock pot size, according to like how much we want to, make. and what the density of the stock will be, right? So we need to choose a stock pot size and then stock range power. And yeah, so there's a choice like because in our real school we use induction heating system, and because of the two reasons, basically. So like induction heating system like has like thermal efficiency of like 90%, right? 90%, um, compared to like gas, right? Compared to gas, which is like 40 to 50%, right? So, for example, like 3 kilowatts, right, of like induction heating, induction cooker, um, conducts, like 2.7 kilowatts of heat, right, to the stock, right? But the gas, right, it, that we have to use like 4.5 kilowatts, or like whatever the calorie the will translate into. So even it's 4.5, like 1.5 times bigger than the induction cooker, it's actually like less than half, right, conducted to the stock cooking heat, right? So that's what, yeah. So like according to that stock pot size, we need to choose the size of the induction cooker, the power of it, and yeah, and then we have to be aware of that yield, right? Yeah, yield of the stock, because this is the Kotteri Ramen stock that we are talking about. That yield percentage is not as great as if it's light stock. So yeah, so these are things like we have to be like aware of, like when choosing the equipment. And so we've been talking about like base stocks a lot because that's like really sort of kind of the essence of like, because if you make the base stock like really good, then the rest sort of like come like kind of easily. And but like tare like is also important. Yeah, and the tare, like speaking of base stock and the tare, right? They're already actually up and available on our online course, right? So if you're interested in that, just check them out. Yeah, tare basically, the soy sauce, shio, and then like miso. These are the three basic ones, but like, um, yeah, we should remember that like tare, like even though it's like even if it's like shoyu ramen, right? Shoyu ramen, like shoyu seasoned ramen soup, you know, we should, well, blend like some of the like actually shio like salt tare as well. It doesn't mean that like if it's like shoyu ramen, like shio ramen, right? The shio ramen also actually contains something like shoyu tare as well in it. Like just that amount of shio are like is well containers are actually greater than the shoyu tare, or just looks well too pale to call it shoyu. Then we call it shoyu shio ramen or something. So doesn't really mean like, well, is that because just shoyu ramen because you just say so, something like that. So, but anyway, so the shoyu, soy sauce, and salt tare, yeah. So there are two methods, and then so these are the ones like so heated methods and unheated methods, and these are available on our online courses. And flavored oil. This is also important because like that completely changes actually the whole sort of like experience of like having the ramen with this oil, because this oil works is like on the noodles as well, like it helps like coat the noodles with the oil, so that like when you eat the noodles you have this sensation like all these like flavors that coming like all this aroma coming out like all these flavor oil. And yeah, so basically, like, like oils, right? And the ingredients, and then you just apply heat. Um, that's it. And then yeah, flavor oil. The section of flavor oil actually is going to be available on well, February 1st, next Tuesday, on our online course. So if you're interested in it, please check it out. So, what are typical mistakes, right? Many people make when producing thick ramen soup, right? I'm not gonna like go through like every single one of them, but like just gonna go through like probably four. And a lot of ramen shops like they, still do it, but like cooking different ingredients in the same pot. Yeah, say for example, like if you have like ingredients that cook in 8 hours, right? And then if you have like some other ingredients that cook in 30 minutes, and other things that cook in like 1.5 hours. If you start right, putting everything like in the same pot and start cooking from in beginning to finish, right? And some of the ones like that cook faster, just kind of will dissolve in the stock, right? And actually, well, making the stock color like cloudy, and then like, well, it's gonna add some, like really dissolved up like ingredients taste to it too. So it's gonna like it's not really good practice. So you know if you're starting, like if you're experimenting, right, like we recommend that like we just just start with or ingredients that cook around the same timing, right? um, yeah, then if you will do the experimentation and like know well roughly, right, how like each of the ingredients you want to add cook, then you can just add it like at like different timings, right? Different timings during the cooking. Then you may like achieve the desired result. But like yeah, it's if you just like start doing that like right away, like without knowing like well how long it's like each of the ingredients you want to use like to cook, then it's gonna problem. Um, and then, yeah, this is a lot of this is a problem like a lot of people have, and it like insufficient scum removable. And then, we talk about like scum, like scum is bad, like but like well, it sounds bad, like how how what does it do, right? So basically, the scum is like coming from yeah, it's like water soluble kind of protein that coagulates above like certain temperature. So for example, like the blood that's stuck on the like the bone and stuff. Yeah, things like that, right? So this causes I know all those like animal like kind of like unpleasant smell based stock. Like if you just leave them in there, so we need to like remove them completely, right? And then, we already talked about, so the scum, like most efficient, scum removal temperature is above like 95 degrees Celsius. And, we should like skim them like, well, at least like 30 to an hour, like until like scum like, stop coming out, right? So this is an important step. Like not a lot of people like skip them. Um, in pre-boiling, yeah, so like a lot of people like actually pre-boil ingredients. Well, basically to get rid of that smell that we are talking about in when it comes to scum, right? But we talk about the temperature, right? And then so umami, the essence, right? It starts coming out like well above like 60 degrees Celsius, right? And then but scum like udon come out until 90 degrees Celsius, like 95. So I, well, when like the water is like reaching, from 60 to like 95, well, there's actually a lot of umami like coming out, right? And then after like it reaches the 95 degrees and like cook it for like 30 minutes, an hour, or like all the scum is gone, right? But and then like if you throw away this water, which contains a lot of umami in it, then you lose a lot of umami that you could extract in the water you throw away. But well, a lot of people actually do it, and yeah, but in some cases, like depending on like what kind of ingredients you're getting, call for this kind of method. But like we usually do not recommend because you're losing the umami from the ingredients. Okay, so the this is another one, and then there are a lot of ramen shops that actually do it too. So yeah, they sort of like cook the broth, right? Throughout business hours for the same day use. So they say that like this ramen shop, and then they start cooking their stock from 8 in the morning, and so reach like so they open for lunch like from let's say like from 11 a.m. till like 3 p.m. right? And then so that the soup density, there's like vertical axle vertical line is like soup density, and like during lunch hours, right? The lunch business, like that stock is too light, for us to be called like, oh, this is the Kotteri stock, Kotteri soup. And so during all the lunch hours, like it's too light. But like, and then, from 3 to 5, that's the idle time, they're closed. Like, ironically, that soup stock like reaches that kind of sufficient level. That's the right, like kind of spot, right? Good spot for as a like the soup density, but like they're closed, right? So and then when they open for dinner business, right, from 5 p.m., it's boiled down, and like the stock is too thick, right, too high. So that's but like then yeah, so that's what happens like usually, and so that by the end of the day, the stock is like too, like boiled down, and like the density is too high, and but and then like if they can't sell it out, then they would have like throw away all the stock, and then they would have to like restart over like from next day, and yeah, so this is another way. A lot of actually ramen shops still do, but we don't recommend this way. And yeah, so we sort of like what we teach is like the different ways, where you can optimize your soup production, and then without like kind of minimizing the waste, right? So yeah, this is what we talk about in the online classes. And so for a Kotteri stock, the thick stock, like there are two ways basically to make your ramen, and that's standard ramen, like so that's hot super noodles, and the tsukemen style ramen, like dipping noodles. And today we are going to show you that like tsukemen style noodles. Okay, and then yes, yeah, so like this is a ramen soup, like we've shown it before. So ramen soup like consists of like all these base stock, tare, flavored oil, and we talked about them all. And yeah, so the December, like sorry, like next Tuesday, February 1st. So we're gonna have like all these three sections available on online class. And so noodle texture chart, we've been talking about it, and then I say that like Kotteri ramen soup, actually, types of noodles like that are like go well with Kotteri ramen soup, like pretty much like all these types of noodles that are like spotted on this noodle texture chart. But basically, Hakata ramen, yeah, thin and hard noodle, and medium-sized noodles. Some people call it chuka soba, and tsukemen dipping noodles. So, but we're gonna make tsukemen dipping noodles. So let's yeah start making tsukemen for Terry tsukemen dish. Okay. Yeah. So so ingredients. Yeah, ingredients are ingredients for noodles, tsuku noodles, And yeah, so sukimi noodles like is going to be thick, thick noodles, thick noodles. Like it's I can say that it's the opposite of Hakata style, like thin and hard noodles, and it's thick and it's well soft and chewy. And so when you're making like thick noodles, like tukumi noodles, that what we want to be careful about is well the hardness, right? Hardness because it's thick, right? Because the noodles are thick, so we want to, you know, be careful about the hardness of the noodles, and the hardness comes from the protein of the flour we use, right? And then the amount of water we add to the flour to make dough. And so what she's doing now is that like she's dissolving the currency and salt in the water. And so this is what like she's gonna add to flour in this mixer unit. And so yeah, the hardness comes from like protein and flour and protein wheat flour and amount of water we add, right? And so basically the protein, like more protein, the harder, right? And then less water, harder. So what we want to do, right, too, because like these thick noodles, like we don't want the thick noodles that are like really hard. They're just that's a really bad combination for when it comes to like noodle texture. And so yeah, for tsukeme noodles, like we want to add more water, right? And we want to use flour, wheat flour that has less protein content. Otherwise, like we don't end up like making thick noodles that are hard. So that's really bad for sukemen noodles. And so yeah, so maybe we prepare this dough in advance. Yeah, I want to thank her for preparing it because that's saving like well um, 6 minutes. And look at the size of the dough, right? It's like it like crumbles the dough, and so this is a kind of hydration of dough that's for kind of skimming noodle like she's making today. And the speed, you're looking at the speed, the volume that you can adjust to speed up and down of the roller, right? Rolling the sheeting process. And so first of like we are making this sheet of dough, right? Sheet of dough that's still like pretty rough. And but like she's so feeding the dough to the roller, and then that's gonna well press it together to make a sheet of dough, right? And yeah, so she added actually it's not just the flour first of all, like she added like actually whole wheat. Um, Yeah, whole wheat flour. Like you maybe like notice like there are some like dots on that dough. Those are the those are some like I think like those like some whole wheat powder. And the reason like we sometimes add like whole wheat grain powder is like they well basically the noodles like look healthier. Yeah, and well of course definitely healthier reality, but like well just the well, that looks of it, like the appearance, you know, makes you think that it's the noodles are healthier than the regular ones. Anyway, so she's adding, feeding it to the rollers, and yeah, so that's how it goes. And yeah, this machine's pretty quiet. Yeah, it's pretty quiet. Like while she's like sheeting it, like rolling. Yeah, it doesn't make much noise at all. Like so, yeah. So you yeah, it's almost like yeah, it makes you wonder like if the machine is like moving at all or yeah. And then they noticed that like so she's like doing the rolling operation at the same time like she's doing the mixing operation, right? So you can do two processes simultaneously, right? The same time. So like you're gonna make like dough, the mixer, and you're gonna do the sheeting process and the rolling unit at the same time. So you're gonna be you can be making actually like different types of noodles at the same time in that sense. And so next process, it's like because the dough is still the fragile, um, pretty weak, right? It's easy to tear. So we want to make it stronger, like firmer. So that's how we do it. Like so, like we separate it into two sheets and then combine them together into one through rollers, and we call it combining process. And so though that's coming out, like it's actually pretty. I mean, the stronger than before. Yeah, I guess like the machine is pretty quiet, and then like in this process, like and then the process before that, we want to go slow. We want to go slow because we want to go slow, right? And then the dough sheet like go pass through that roller gap like slowly. So the moment like the dough gets like kind of sufficient pressure uh, through the passing, right? So that's good. That works on the gluten structure inside the dough, and so that's good for well, basically developing the great noodle texture. And so this is the second combining process. So we usually do like this process like one to twice, right? And then um, just to make sure the dough is well thoroughly developed in terms of like gluten structure. And but like from this point on, right? We're gonna run the duster, automatic duster, and because from this point on, like we want to be, yeah, we don't want the dough to from sticking together, right? So we're gonna dust it, and yeah, we want to dust them well, because the tsukemen noodles is usually high in hydration and higher hydration like the weather, right? And so the more you want to dust to make sure it's gonna stick, right? It's not gonna stick. And dusting powder is like usually in Japan, like we have like um, special flour, actually starch for dusting, but that's not readily available in overseas. So in overseas, like we usually use the cornstarch, yeah, basically cornstarch, and some people use potato starch as well, but we usually use cornstarch. So yeah, you maybe notice that like the roller get faster a little bit because yeah, she turned up the volume of speed. Yeah, we can go faster from this point on because the dough is totally developed and yeah, for good noodle texture, right? And then so that's the thinning process, thinning process, and see. So another round of thinning. So we want to gradually thin the dough to make sure, like, we're not gonna damage the gluten structure inside dough. If you just, we can probably go from like maybe 4 millimeter to maybe 1 millimeter uh, with one run sheeting, right? But like that's that's too hard on the dough, and like yeah, it's gonna really damage the dough. Yeah, so like that undermines the noodle texture. So we want to gradually thin it. So that's why, like, we're just doing like more couple rounds of sheeting before we reach that final thickness. And so before you start cutting noodles, right? Like we want to measure the actual thickness because it's always bigger, and that's 2.5 millimeter, and 2.5 when it's going to like 2 millimeter. So that's how much the dough, bounced back, right? That's how much like dough expanded after it's gone through the roll gap, and that's 0.5 millimeter. So we can expect the dough to bounce back, right? After, it's going through the roller gap and going to that cutter. And so 0.5 millimeter, like, that's well bigger, right? It's going to be thicker. It's going through the roller gap. And this is the cutter we're going to use, and this is a number 12 cutter. And so each groove is 2.5 millimeter in width, and that's the width, right? That's the width of the noodles, and uh, thickness thickness controlled by the roller gap, like the clearance between these two rollers. And for this side, right, ideal thickness is 2.2 millimeter. Like the thickness 2.0 millimeter, so that to be like 2.2 by 2.5, 2.2 by 2.5. That's the dimension of the noodle. So let's start cutting, right? Noodles are coming out, and okay, and so this is a high hydration noodle, and then like thick noodles, and so depending on the serving size that you decide for your shop, your business, right? You can adjust the serving size by like changing the length of the noodle, and well, it's high hydration noodles, like being heavier, the low hydration noodle, and then like it's bigger. So even it's like if it's shorter than well, some like low hydration noodle, like medium hydration noodle, uh, yeah, the weight itself may be bigger. So um, the key is to just weigh the noodles, right? Like one serving, one serving, and yeah, and then adjust the length, like to you know, well, the serving size you want, right, for your business. So that's how we make like sukime noodles from scratch for Kotteri Ramen. dipping soup. So, all right, let's go to our ramen school kitchen, and I think our instructor is waiting for us. Okay. Okay, it's 5:30 and 5:25 in Japan, and like this is our showroom, and yeah, nobody's here, but um, this is our kitchen. This is our kitchen, where we conduct the cooking cooking sections of ramen school, and yeah, actually we are conducting ramen school like pretty soon, like in a few weeks, um, and yeah, so Miss Sano, our instructor, well, we'd like to have her to teach us how to put together Kotteri Ramen soup dish. Like that's going to be tsukemen this time around. So thank you, Miss Sano. Thank you. Okay. Okay, so I'm gonna make tsukemen, but like no, it's because it's gonna take a while to cook tsukemen noodles. So let's start cooking noodles first. Yeah, so it's gonna take a while, so let's start cooking the noodles first. All right. So let's see what we have here. Yes. はい、どうぞ。Yeah, so we were talking about it before about like tsukemen soup base. Tsukemen like consists of like tsukemen sauce, like consists of well soup base, right? And then the tare and flavor oil. Yeah, and then so today, like let me talk about the soup base. So today, like for this soup base, like I made soup base like using these pork ingredients. Mm. So that's pork legs, right? Then pork trotters. Yeah, so when we cook them like for a long time, and then it becomes uh, yeah, like this, right? Like still some yeah pork legs like thighs, still you see them. Yeah, so like some of the meats like still well left on the bones are like already like melted in the into the stock, right? But like this you can still see the bones, right? Bones like a bone marrow in there, like was all like also like melted in the stock as well. Yeah, so like just constantly like, keep like boiling down, and then like well it's just stuff like that, really high density. Yeah, so we can't really like use this stock like this, right? Like so we have to strain it because like otherwise like customers would have like feel like all these not so feel good texture of from like residual like of these like meats and like bones in their mouth. So I'm gonna strain them. So that's the big soup strainer. So usually we like hand strain them, right? Hand strain them, right? So we'll like just kind of hand strain like this, um, just making sure that like all the stock, it's just pure stock being strained, right? Yeah, so like that's how you sort of like kind of keep straining.
で、これをまあスープがなくなるまで頑張って続けていくんですけど、まあ、すごい大変でしんどいです。
Yeah, so we have to like keep doing this process like until like we strain like all the stock, right? And but it's really cumbersome, like it's very labor intensive and time consuming.
で、まあ、スープ自体もすごい重いし、人でも取られてしまいます、このスープベース、こしめに。
Yeah, so well, just to strain the stock, right? It just takes time, like and then like labor. You have to like have like someone who's like dedicated to this task, right?
で、そこでですね、
Then
こちら、
so
どう
we
ぞ。
so instead of like doing that by hand, right? We usually use this soup straining machine.
で、スープこし器って自動でスープをこしてくれる機械があります。
So yeah, so this is soup straining machine, and
で、まあ、この上にこうスープをガラッとこう乗せてあげると、こうくるくるくるくる回って、こう下からこう干されたスープが出てくる。
yeah, so how you use it is like it's pretty simple. Like you're just gonna put that stock on top of this straining machine, and the straining machine like just gonna spin inside, right? Just spin it, spin it, spin it, and then just yeah, using power like centrifuge, the you're just gonna automatically strain it.
ちょっと実際に使ってみます。
Okay, so let's start using it.
で、まあ、コンセントを挿してもらって、主電源入れたら、一応動くようになってます。
Yeah, so it's plugged in and powered right now. Okay, and turn on the switch. Okay, okay.
で、ここのなんかダイヤルみたいなところをこう、オンにすると、
Yeah, so like turn on the switch, right? And then like it's gonna start spinning, right? And then
で、スープを入れます。
so let's put a soup in there. Hmm? Oh,
線抜きます。
oh, wait, there's a plug in there.
で、干されたスープが下から出てきます。
Yep. So the strange stock like just coming out. Uh, and the bottom.
で、まあ、これで軽々スープがこせるようになってます。
Yeah, so that's how this soup strainer, strain the stock.
で、この上に網があるので、ここで大きい骨とかをこう拾ってくれるので、結構蒸しやすくなってます。
Yeah, that lid right has like this hole, right, and then it functions like so like kind of filter and like kind of catching like all the big bones, and so so the big bones are not gonna like get in there, kind of disturbing all the straining process. So that's makes it easier to strain.
で、こんな感じで全部骨が残ってるので、蒸しやすいです。
Yeah, so yeah, all the big bones are caught in that lid.
これ手作業に比べるとだいぶ楽に出てます。
Yeah, so it's much easier than like hand straining process. Like it's automatic and okay.
で、麺が茹で上がったので、一旦ちょっと出してもらっておきますね。
Okay, so I think the noodles are done. So I asked someone else to take them out.
はい、まあ、こんな感じでスープをこしていきます。
Okay, so that's how we kind of strain stock. Especially Kotteri ramen stock. Yeah, so yeah, the stock that we just strained, right? Like we're gonna use it like for tonkotsu ramen soup. Okay.
はい、で、そのまんま、つけ麺に使うのは濃度がちょっと物足りないので、その場合はちょっと煮詰めてあげます。
Okay, so for tsukemen, right? The density, stock density is like is not like actually enough for like tsukemen sauce because we want to make it like thicker, even thicker, right? And so
で、サバ節とウルメ節っていうのを500グラムに対して1%入れて、ちょっと香りだったり風味をつけながら煮詰めていきます。
okay, so the soup base, right? So we're gonna put that like brown herring and like mackerel flakes, dry flakes. Um, well, the amount is just 1% to the weight of the base stock, right? And then you're gonna put it in there like base stock, and then like just heat it, and then like kind of boiling down the base stock, kind of like flavoring that stock with this
はい、
seafood.
はい、煮詰めてあげるので、より濃度の高いドロッとしたつけ麺に向いたスープが出来上がります。
Yeah, so by it's like boiling down the stock with these ingredients in. Um, yeah, so we can we can make it like sort of thicker and with the like flavor of like all these fish flakes.
煮詰めたものがこちらですね、用意してます。
And so that's the stock that is like I boil it down like in advance. Okay.
はい、で、さっきこの節類を一緒に炊き込むっていう話だったんですけど、炊いた後はこれまたザラザラするんで、こしてあげてください。
Right. So yeah, so we cook them together, right? Like like we cook these dry fish flakes in that stock, right? But like after like done, you have to strain them out because that's not going to be like good texture for the ramen, the stock as a ramen stock, right? So right, so
で、ここに元だれと香味を入れていくわけなんですけど、つけ麺の、元だれは一応ヤマトのレシピではこんな感じになってます。
so the tare, like we're gonna add like tare like to that the stock, right? And then flavor oil, and the tare basically consists of these things.
この分量で元だれを合わせていきます。
Yeah, so this is part of like digital cooking practice, but like we're gonna blend these
でも、
together.
すみません、元だれを測るときは、こういうすごい細かい部分まで測れる測るを使ってあります。
Yeah, so we use this scale that can measure up to like 1/10 of gram. It's very precise scale.
で、ここにそれぞれも測ったものがあるので、これをもう合わせていきます。
And I actually already measured like each one of them like in advance, and so like we're just gonna put them together in the sauce bowl. Okay, yeah.
それが入って、これ香味油ですね。
And so that was the tare, and then like this is the flavor oil. That's a mixture of like different oils.
香味油も入れます。ここにスープを入れるわけなんですけど、先に麺が上がってるので麺を入れます。
Yeah, so I'm gonna add that base stock to that bowl, but because the noodles are ready, so let me
冷た
plate the
い麺
noodles.
で作るので、水で締めます。
Yeah, so like tsukimi noodles can be the noodles can be like warm or like cold, but this one's cold. So yeah, after cooking them and like washing them and then chill them.
ちょっと麺線をきれいに整えて盛り付けをしたいので、ちょっときれいに取っていきますね。
Yeah, so I wanna kind of yeah, make like presentation nicely. So like let me comb the noodle strands like through and just make them kind of look nice.
で、この綺麗に揃ってる面をこう表で盛り付けてあげるような感じで。
Yeah, it's like combing the hair. That's a yeah. Okay, so let me plate it. Okay, so that's noodles.
整えてあげると綺麗にこう入れます。
Yeah. So
で、トッピングなんですけど、オーソドックスな感じで。
So for toppings, yeah, I got like some like typical toppings for tsukemen, and it's kind of like it's very standard toppings that you see like on tsukemen dish.
まずチャーシューですね。
It's a chashu, that's I think pork shoulder,
メンマ。
then bamboo shoot, marinated bamboo shoot, emma, we call them.
次、卵。
Then egg, 卵.
卵は包丁で切ると断面がガサガサするので、糸で切ります。
Yeah, well, the slicing egg like like knife like just gonna be like kind of crush the like surface of the egg, right? Like it cuts surface of the egg. So like we usually use this the strand to cut it to make the surface sharp.
で、すだちです。
That's sudachi citrus.
これ三つ葉です。
That's mitsuba, like kind of herb,
緑を足
leafy
してあ
herb
げる。
like we use in Japan. Okay. So.
で、麺はこちらでできまし
Okay,
た。
so that's the noodle plate. This noodle plate, and then so sukemen, like you usually have like a bowl for dipping soup, right? Separately.
で、こちらで完成です。はい。
All right, so that's sukemen, like using like Kotteri ramen soup, and well, this time around, like she made it with the thighs, pork thigh bones, and then the pork shoulder to add like some collagen to emulsify the stock. So, okay, thank you so much. Bye bye.